I want you to talk about the first time you met Knoxville.
Johnny Knoxville was. It was really interesting because Rolling Stone had written that article. For those of you who don't know, Rolling Stone wrote an article about me calling the number one party animal in the country. It genuinely changed my life. It changed my life forever. Oliver Stone optioned the rights to my life. I got offered book deals. I did radio every fucking day for like they'd start calling my house at like the wee hours of the morning, and then
Well, wait, just a sec on that. I remember you saying, weren't they just trying to write like a party article?
Yeah.
And then people were like, there's this dude. You got to go find this dude. And I remember you telling the story.
I was Red Lightning. Do you know who Red Lightning is?
No.
Oh, I'm obsessed with him. I'll show you later.
Oh, yeah, no, I know Red Lightning. Now I know who you're talking about, the football guy on the
I was Red Lightning. But imagine if, like, this is before, like, it was, so they were trying to write an article in the school, and every time they met someone's like, have you met Bert? You should meet Bert. And so then they finally called me and they were like, hey, can we stay with you for like a week and write an article about the school? And then they did. They stayed with me for a week. And then halfway through, he was like, he wrote the article about the school. And then his Jan Werner, who like runs Rolling Stone, was like, I just think it was better if we just make it about this kid. And so then they just changed it and they made it about me. I remember I was going to spring break and they asked me, they said, they said, we need your clearance on these pictures. Can you approve these pictures? And they sent me the pictures. I met my parents at the airport. I was flying from D.C., and this is, pre 9/11, obviously.
Yeah.
So they met me at the gate, and my dad had all the pictures that were going to be in Rolling Stone, and they were all of me. And I was like, holy shit, like all these pictures of me? My dad's like, buddy, I think you're going to be in this article. And I was like, yeah. And then April 1st article came out, and it was just me. It was me. The opening sentence is like, it's taken Bert Kreischer 6.5 years to become the man he is today, the number one partier at the number one party school in the country. And I was like, I remember reading it and I sat down. I remember, these are the little things you remember. It's interesting about the truth. I say the truth because, it's a long story, but like when Rogan one time said, if you tell the truth, you never have to be worried because you're always going to have the same story because it's the story. It's the only one you remember.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, the little details, and I always include these in my stories because they're the things I remember the most. Like when I was at the Russian Mafia, I remember what I was wearing. I remember when I thought I was going to jail, I can tell you what I was wearing. I knew they were Merrill green canvas boots. That were like, they're almost like, Chuck Taylor's, but they were Merrill. I remember that. I remember wearing jeans. I had a fanny pack on that was purple, and I had a blue and black Obermeyer, ski jacket. I remember that vividly. I can tell you distinctly that outfit. And then when I got the article, I sat down on the couch, and I never forget sitting down on the couch and all the dust particles from the couch went up and the sun was shining through. And as I started reading the article, I stopped and I looked at the dust particles, and I remember thinking to myself, oh fuck, this is going to be big. I was like, this is going to, I bet, and it hadn't even really hit the newsstand. Rolling Stone mailed me a copy. Mailed it, literally. Yeah, I was at email.
Yeah.
I didn't even have an email account then. But I remember sitting, I can tell you where I was sitting. I was facing the kitchen in our place. And those are the things that kind of stick in my head the most.
And you just knew then? After reading it, you're like,
dude, when I read it, I started getting teary eyed because it was an article about me.
Incredible. Yeah.
And it wasn't like I was on TV or anything. I was just some kid.
Well, that's back when like magazines, Rolling Stone's like the fucking coolest magazine in the world.
And so ESPN called, and they were like, and everyone called. Oprah called. Oprah wanted to do an interview with me and my parents. My parents wouldn't do it.
Really?
Yeah, because my parents wouldn't do it because she was just going to be like, look what your son's become.
Oh, yeah.
And so, ESPN 2 called. They were doing the X Games, and they're like, we're doing commercials for the X Games, and we have 2 actors touring on a tour bus, and we'd like them, they're making stops all around, we'd like them to make a stop in Tallahassee. They're going to shoot something in Tallahassee, but maybe they can party with you, and we'll show that they're partying with you. And I was like, great. So the 2 actors were Johnny Knoxville and this other guy. I don't remember the other fucking guy. But I definitely remember Johnny Knoxville because I remember thinking, how do you have a name like John? I want to say he told me his name was PJ. I mean, I don't really remember, but I want to say he told me his name was PJ, but he was like, you can call me Johnny Knoxville. That's the first time I ever heard of someone changing their name. I was like, Johnny Knoxville. I was actually better friends with the other guy. The other guy was a little more approachable. Johnny was he was very nice, but he was like, you could tell he was like, he had been on the road. He was partying, I think, a lot. I remember the first thing he asked me is if I knew where to get Dilaudid. And I was like, what? And then we all went into this tour bus, and he gave me 2 pills, and he was like, take them. And then they had a bong. Or I think they had a bong, because we were at the Lambda Chi house. I took one of the pills. I was like, what did I just take? And they were like, it's pharmaceutical heroin. I didn't feel anything. So they might have been fucking with me. And that was the thing, is like a lot of people wanted to see how hard, they wanted to test me about partying. At the time, a lot of people, like all the FSU football players, were like, shots, we're gonna fucking see if you can really party. And I was like, oh god. I got roofied during that time. Like everyone was trying to see, like, test my partying skills. So I took this pill, I ghosted one, I held one on my finger and popped it in, and I took one pill, and then we took some bong hits, and we watched the video. I don't know what it was, but it was guys trying to knock themselves out with a beer bottle. So they had the beer bottle in their hand, and they were hitting it on their own head, trying to knock themselves unconscious. And I remember laughing so fucking hard. And he kept playing it over again. He was, this is not the greatest thing you've ever fucking seen. And then we went out, we partied, went to some bars. We went to one bar, and I got naked, and they broke beer bottles over my head. Because of that, we saw that. And then that night, we went, and we took the tour bus to Yanni's, and we went partying there. And then we went back to my house, and we all got dressed in drag with a bunch of girls. And Johnny Knoxville was throwing himself down the flight of stairs. He was like, I remember he was at the top of the stairs. He's like, I can throw myself down a flight of stairs. I was like, seriously? And he's like, yeah, you want to see? And I was like, fuck yeah. And he did it. And I was like, holy shit. And then we were in the kitchen. We were in my kitchen. And I remember him explaining the idea of Jackass to me. And he was like, but it wasn't Jackass. He didn't have an idea. He's like, I want to do a show where I get shot in the chest. And I was like, what? You gotta understand how ahead of its time this was. This is 1997, 1996, 97. The reality TV hadn't even come out yet. Like, the concept that what he was talking, I mean, reality TV was out. They had, like, Real World Road Rules. But what he was talking about was so fucking off the rails that I remember him saying, it's like me wrapped in an American flag, and it's just like, and I have a bulletproof vest, and someone just shoots me in the chest. Would you watch it? And I was like, fuck yeah. He's like, a suit of armor, someone shoots me with a bow and arrow. And I'm like, I'm in. He's like, I'll get tasered. Like, I'll do it all. And I was like, in my head, I was like, I don't think anyone will ever put it on the air. I was like, but I'll watch it. Yeah. And then I remember where I was when I first saw Jackass. I was sitting, in the bleachers at the X show. We were doing the X show, and we were doing the X show, I guess. And, one of my cameramen put in a tape for all the cameramen. He's like, you guys gotta see this shit. And all the cameramen would eat. Most of the hosts would all eat, like, in the mess hall, but the cameramen would all eat by their gear in the showroom, in, like, the studio. And they were all sitting where the audience sits, and they were watching it, and I watched it, and I was like, holy fucking shit. And that was like a tape he had, I think, that was going around. But I ran into him one time, and I'll be honest with you, still the nicest fucking guy. He saw me, and I went, Johnny. And he looked at me, and he goes, Bert Kreischer. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, holy shit, man, what are you doing out here? And I said, I have a TV show. He's like, me too. I was like, yeah, I'm very familiar with yours. But yeah, he was a really great guy.
Yeah, I see him on Runyon all the time, and he's
really.
I mean, I never approach him, but you can sometimes get stopped, but he's like, it's like one of those things that I learned here in LA. You could hear voices and realize who it was.
Oh yeah.
I was walking down the street, and I heard like heels behind me, and I love it when you can hear like heels clacking, like that's usually a hot chick.
Yeah.
So I'm looking over my left shoulder. And all of a sudden, I hear this voice like 5 feet in front of me coming out of this pet store. And I was like, I know that voice. I turned around, it was Drew Barrymore. I was like, holy shit. But I see Knoxville all the time up there.
If I saw him, I probably would try to say hi.
Yeah, that's so cool that he remembered you.
I mean, that was in 2001 when he saw me. So it was only 4 years after. I don't know if he'd remember. I think he'd probably remember me now. I think he'd still remember me.
Yeah, I'm sure if you guys.
I mean, the only reason I remember him is because he got famous.
Yeah, that's why you don't remember the other guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the other guys, like, I'm sure if Johnny was like, you know who that was, right? That was fucking Scott Conn. And you're like, what?